Move it. I call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Our invocation tonight will be brought by Councilmember Dewey Markham, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Will you please stand?
Our Father tonight, Lord, we are so thankful for this beautiful day which you've given us. We pray tonight, Lord, that you continue to look down on Haltom City. May you continue to bless each council member here tonight, that we may make the decisions that's right and just for each citizen of our city. We ask these things in the name of thy Son. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number one is a request. Agenda item number one is a request for signage in a residential neighborhood for slow children. Slow. Wait a minute. Not slow children at play. Slow children at play. John, is the person here who wants to speak about this?
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you handling that for me. Starlight Drive runs back to the east off Denton Highway and runs around and makes a little horseshoe over, or a half horseshoe over into Glenview Drive. And I've had some residents in those 2 or 3 blocks there that have come to me about a concern they have with increased traffic on 820 being like it is and all the construction. People are doing whatever they can to take shortcuts or cut time off their driving time. And one of the things that we've noticed in this area over there, people do not like to stop at the red light at Glenview and Denton Highway. So they will cut short there and go through Starlight around to Glenview, or come in back home from work. They will come the opposite way, come back down Glenview around Starlight. The only thing these folks don't do, they don't realize it's a residential area. Somebody can talk louder than me. Bring her up here. She lives on Starlight. And I went down there and sat a little bit and kind of surveyed it, and I spoke with some of the residents, and I think some of them are here tonight with speaker cards. The first thing they come and approached me about was putting speed bumps in. And I explained to them the problem we'd have with the speed bumps as far as the fire equipment, police equipment getting through. If they had to be in a hurry, it would tear the equipment up trying to get to where they were going. So the next, then a couple of more suggestions, and I'll let them present to the council, but I do know we have a problem down there. It's not on the street I live on. It's just to the north of me, and I drive through there occasionally, and I see these cars going through there, and it's not one of your actual residents where just people are just ignoring the speed limit. It's where people are using this for a cut-through street in place of using regular roads. They're designed to do that, and I think some of these folks want to come forward and bring their concerns with you. I think they'll either be asking for either a stop sign or children.
I have 2 speakers' requests.
So why don't we go ahead and listen to them at this time then?
Ross Loftus, are you in the audience?
Yes, ma'am.
Ross, will you go over to the podium, please, and state your name and address for the record?
My name is Ross Loftus. I live at 5709 Starlight Drive. And there's been several instances when I had people speed down the street. One instance was about 1.5 years ago. A lady actually pulled a gun on me when I asked her to slow down, and she didn't slow down. Pardon my French, but I threw a chamois. I was washing the car, threw a chamois at the car. She then slammed on her brakes and pulled a gun on me. And the police came and, this is, like I say, this has been about a year and a half
Yeah.
ago. But that the speeding has not slowed down or picked up. It's been about the same. She lives down the street. She lives about 3 blocks from me.
What's the current speed limit on your street?
30 miles an hour.
Okay.
But 30 miles an hour is too fast for a residential street, as far as I'm concerned, and all the neighbors are concerned. I really think that there should be, like, children at play, or even 20 miles an hour. For parks, they have 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. But, I don't know, it's between 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the evening till about 6. And in the mornings, I leave early, so I'm gone at 6. But that was just the first instance. But I'd say about 3 weeks ago, my company vehicle was hit on a Saturday morning at about 10:30 in the morning. It was hit, and I have pictures to show for that. And the lady was probably going about 45 is what the police said.
Ross, our police chief is here somewhere, and what I'd like to do is after, if you have finished addressing the council, to have you meet with him and see what we can do about this.
Okay. But it's been an ongoing thing about speeding down our street.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have the daughter that you heard screaming in the background.
Yes.
And I also have twin daughters that are 10, and we can't even let them ride their bicycles on the street, because we're scared they're going to get run over.
Well, if you don't mind, we'll ask you to get with him and see if we can't start some sort of procedure that maybe will
Okay.
help that situation.
All right.
Chief Hammett, where are you?
Right here.
Okay, he's right back here.
How you doing?
If you would take this young man and discuss his problem with him, please, on Starlight, and see if we can't do something for him. Thank you, Mr. Loftus.
Thank you.
The other speaker's card I have is Debbie Geltmeyer, is that correct? Will you come forward, please, Debbie? If you like, you can also meet with the chief.
I'd like.
Okay, all right.
Great. My name's Debbie Geltmeyer. I live at 5712 Starlight Drive. I would like everyone here from Starlight Drive to please stand up so the city council can see.
Just a minute, we're going to take names.
Oh, yeah? On a Valentine's night, I think that's a pretty good turnout.
Sure is.
We're very concerned about the speeding on our street. I have already spoken with the Public Works Department. I understand that we were in a long line of study for a traffic study, and someone called me back last week and indicated that we're next to study the intersection of Biscayne and Starlight.
Mm-hmm.
That was just our idea to try to get these people to slow down. We need the children at play signs, and we also would like to request a lower speed limit. The curve, if you've ever been down our street, 30 miles an hour on that curve is
Right.
ridiculous to have that speed. And, there are many curves that have 20 miles marked on that sort of an angle, and at the very least. I was the witness when the person pulled the gun on my neighbor. I also came home to see my street blocked off last month when the woman going down to Glenview Mart to buy her beer from the Warren Inn ran into the back of his truck. And I tell you, my kids play out in the street. Our neighborhood is older, but it's turning over now. We have younger members in the neighborhood, and we really would request that you consider this seriously because it means a lot to us.
Well, we will, and I think they're probably right back here, Debbie, if you'd like to go back with them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our second agenda item is a library board presentation, and I see Roxanne Grove in the front row. Are you going to make that presentation?
Hello, I'm Roxanne Grove, President of the Library Board, And I'm here to, on behalf of the Library Board, to invite Mayor Watkins and council members. I want to invite all of you to a grand celebration on February the 20th at 2 p.m. at the library. We're going to celebrate the renovation of the library. And I want to personally invite you because I feel that you deserve as much thanks as I can possibly give you for all the support that you gave the library in finding the money to help us renovate, to work on the air conditioning and the doors and the carpet and the new chairs and painting and all of the things that we've done. And it was a joint effort, I know, with the library board and the council, but I thank you so much, and the whole library board does too. And also, I wanted to, while I was here, I wanted to thank Rodney Bland, and the staff for working so hard to make the renovation go well. Thank you. And because I know it was a terrible ordeal for them, I mean, you know, to have the library torn apart like that and then try and put it back together, but they did a wonderful job, and we want to thank them for that too. And we're going to have a little ribbon cutting ceremony at 2:15 if you read your little invitation, and some entertainment, and hopefully everybody will have a good time, and so please come and see the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you for the invitation. For those of you that haven't been to the library since it was renovated, you're in for a real treat because it's just outstanding. And this, let's see, this will be February the 20th at 2 p.m. The ribbon cutting is at 2:15. So if you haven't been there, you'll want to come and have a look. Thank you, Roxanne. The next agenda item is an update on the Birdville Historical Society, and I think Betty Porter's here to bring us that update.
You have something else to pack now?
Okay, I'm in the right seat for it.
Hi, my name is Betty Porter. I'm president of the Birdville Historical Society. And tonight I just brought a rundown of our finances for the last year. Some of you may not know, we are the Birdville Historical Society, but to date, Haltom City is the only one that is helping to finance the Birdville Historical Society. I'm working on all the other cities, but they have not come forward yet with the money. So I just want to thank you all for continuing to support the Historical Society, and to invite you to tour this Saturday. We're going to tour the Wise County Museum and the Wise County Courthouse, which is in Decatur. We will meet at the library at 7:45 and carpool to Decatur to tour those two facilities. The Wise County Historical Society will conduct the tours. And if you have any questions about the financial statement that I just gave you, I'll answer any questions that I can. Next month, our Historical Society will be 4 years old. That's not very old for an area that's been here over 150 years. But we started late, but we're gonna make strides here because we do have the history. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions? Guess not, Betty.
Okay.
One question. Are y'all going to form a group and leave here to go up there, or are y'all going to meet up there? Or-
No, we're meeting at the library. We're going to carpool
At
to
the Haltom
Decatur.
City Library?
Mhm.
Okay.
7:45.
Thank you.
Okay. We have an agenda on an item on the agenda now that's not actually on there, but it's a surprise. So I need to ask Joe Wright to come up now. And is Chief Jerry McIntyre here? Huh. Let me put my camera over here.
Where is the... Chief?
Not too long ago, the fire department decided to buy a new storage building. And they asked the beautification board if we would like to have their old one, which we did. And we wanted it moved to our tree farm. Well, we took bids to have it moved, and that was way out of our budget, so we decided we couldn't go that route. So Chief offered to help us, and he spent many hours disassembling the building, moving it to the new site, reassembling the building, and this is just our way of saying we couldn't have done it without you.
Well, I appreciate it.
No, we'll stand there. I may get a photograph. If you want to pick that up.
Yes. I'll let you pick it up.
What's the X?
Congratulations.
Man, a few words.
Oh, do you want to speak?
He said thanks. This was totally unexpected. I really do appreciate their thoughtfulness. We had a chance to give them a building that still has some life in it, and I had some real good help moving it up there too.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Y'all aren't through with me yet. Sorry. At this time, I'd like to make a presentation to a group that is in our city. They have, for the last 4 or 5 years, helped with our Christmas tree lighting. They handle the crowd control. They have helped us open 2 parks. They helped us open our new police station. They help us with Halloween and Veterans Day. They are, like I said, right here in our city. And every quarter, our beautification board in Haltom City gives an award called a Community Pride Award. We have traditionally given this in the past to churches, but we decided to expand and include community groups, civic organizations, and this quarter our award goes to the Haltom High School JROTC. So would y'all come up, please? The group is taught by First Sergeant Long and Colonel Fallis. We have Cadet Lieutenant Adriana Barrera, Cadet Second Lieutenant Trevor Fuller, Cadet First Sergeant Jimmy Adams, and Cadet Commanding Sergeant Major Amanda Norman. So thank you guys for all your help. We appreciate it. I have a proclamation here, and I'd like to ask the mayor to come down if she will. Oh.
How's that?
I just snuck up on you, didn't I? I wasn't watching him. I was watching. I'll let you read that if you want to, and I'll get a picture.
This goes to Haltom High School, ROTC. Whereas it is in the best interest of all that each of us take responsibility for caring for our local environment and the residents therein. And the members of Haltom High School ROTC, along with their sponsor, Sergeant Long, have publicly demonstrated their commitment to that cause by participating in and assisting with programs sponsored by Keep Haltom City Beautiful, including the annual community tree lighting. And the Haltom City Beautification Board wishes to recognize those who voluntarily put time and effort into making Haltom City a better place in which to live and work. And we hope you'll be very proud to have this and display it with pride. We know we're proud of you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
These are the young men and women that we don't read about in the newspapers, and if we do, they're buried back on page umpteen whatever, because good deeds so often go unrecognized. So we're real proud to have them. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, and it consists of items number 5 plus 2 additions, items number 16 and item number 18. We'd be ready for a motion, Council. Councilmember Arp?
I was going to say, that's 5 through 11.
5 through 11 plus 16 and 18.
17.
I think we're going to let Rodney speak on that one.
5 through 11 plus 16 and 18.
Okay, that'll be in the form of a motion.
Councilmember Williams?
That's for a second.
Councilmember, okay. You got it off just in time. I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have the suspicion that our audience is as large as it is tonight, because there's probably a lot of you here that are wishing to hear about what happens on agenda item number 19, so that you don't have to stay up all night like we do. We are going to move agenda item 19 to right now, instead of making you wait. Agenda item 19 concerns the non-resident fees for the youth sports. And that pretty much speaks for itself. What I have some speakers' request cards, and I will ask you to please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The first one is Michael Hornsby. Are you in the audience, Michael? Please state your name and address for the record.
I'd like to thank y'all for having me here. My name is Mike Hornsby. Live at 7300 Wesley Court, and I'm unfortunate to say that would be a non-resident. I have spent the last 10 years coaching athletic sports, youth athletic sports here in Haltom City. I spent the last 8 years also as an elected board member for Haltom City Youth Baseball. We have several issues, and I won't be able to get them all in my 3 minutes, so hopefully my counterparts can pick up the rest of them that I can't get to. Obviously, we are in support of the tax that was just passed, and we've tried to pull as much effort as we could towards that and having that tax passed. And obviously, because it's a way we can help y'all help us. And we understand that the good percentage of that money goes to the Parks and Recreation, which is what we're looking for, obviously better parks for our children to play in. My kids did grow up in Haltom City. They did play here at these parks. I don't know if this is good or bad. I played in those parks, and they're pretty much the same park they were that I played in. The $8 is something we are totally in favor of. We think that if there was a park there that justified that $8, that we wouldn't have a problem looking at our patrons who pay our fees to play Haltom City youth baseball, football, or softball, and saying, hey, our city's built us a great park just like surrounding cities have. It's going to cost, you an extra additional fee being a non-resident to play there. A lot of cities around us have done that same very thing. But they put the $8 or a fee after they built their park, not prior to building their park. Right now, it's almost embarrassing for me to tell someone out of the city, that I'm going to charge you $8 to play on the field. Those fields are okay. I mean, we can play ball on them. But I promise you, the people who come to play out of area to play in Haltom City do not come to play here because they like the fields. I guarantee you they come because they like to play for the associations that run those fields, okay? And to ask them to pay an additional $8, it's just not fair. I'll bring up the point of Iron Horse Golf Course. Iron Horse charges a different rate for non-residents as opposed to residents. But those residents are also charged on their water bill a contribution of $1, to help offset that. It's also charged across the board, whether you're adult or a kid playing there, okay? Where this $8 seems to focus only on the children that's playing there. It doesn't affect adult softball, it doesn't affect anything else. It's just $8 aimed at the youth. I realize they pay to play softball there, but they pay to play other sports too. And we just need to make sure that it's fair across the board. I, as a non-resident, spend anywhere from 30 to 45 hours down there donating my time. I don't mind paying the $8, but it's hard enough for me to find individuals to volunteer like myself. I've been on that board for 10 years. I probably won't be there much longer. My kids have already come through. I'm doing my nephews right now. When they're gone, I'll be away. But I need people to replace me. I need people to replace my other board members. And if they come from out of city, that just means they're a good person. Doesn't mean we should tax them another $8 because they're there. Now, if we had a facility to warrant that, it certainly would be a lot easier. We pulled together to have that tax in place so that we could fund this. And I understand that the $8 was probably there to help offset if it wasn't there. But now that it is, and the funding will be available someday, as far as myself and my board members, we just feel the $8 is not, it's a drop in the bucket. I mean, Haltom City Youth Baseball did not charge this sign-up fee, that $8. We'll have to pay that out of our pocket, which means it came out of my kids from Haltom City as well as the kids that are out of residence. And the reason that happened is because this all happened so fast. We already had our flyers in and printing done stating what our costs were. So there was no way for us to justify them, when they walked in and say, oh, we put in a price, but.
Getting close.
Okay. There'll be plenty of other people make my other points for me, but, that's the ones that I wanted to make sure I make. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Glenn Johnson? Please state your name and address.
My name's Glenn Johnson. I live at 4301 Haltom Road here in Haltom City. Been a resident out here for 35 years. I've coached Pee Wee football for 29 years. Also coached baseball. I'd just like to concur with what Mike said. If the fields were brand new fields, or if they were fields like some of the cities have, then the $8 might be justified. I've been coaching football up here since 1971 on the same field since 1971. I mean, they haven't changed at all. A little water, a little grass, that's it. I mean, there's nothing been done to them. I can't see $8 fee being charged to non-residents. In football, we have approximately 500 kids. Say if 150 of them were non-residents, $1,200. I don't see where that's going to make or break the city, but it might make or break some kid that wants to play football. $8 means a lot to a lot of kids. Where some of us, $8 don't mean anything, $8 would keep some kids from playing football. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Deanne Russell? Name and address, please, Deanne.
I'm Deanne Russell. I live at 3924 Min, and I'm the president of Haltom City Girls Softball. I wanted to concur with what Mike and Glenn have also said. We feel that there's a lot of work needed at Broadway Park. Right now, it's a danger to a lot of our kids. The fencing is awful. If we had a kid fall, slide, or try to catch a ball at home plate, the fencing is it's coming apart. All that needs to be replaced. There is water when it rains. The dirt has washed away, and when you have to step up into the dugout, I mean, you don't just walk in the dugout, you have to actually step up in it. There's a lot of dangerous things down there, and I can't see asking these people to pay $8 when their kids are in danger. And I just think that we need to hold off until we have improved fields, We support the non-residence fee if there was something up there that the kids were safe playing on. We've even considered a step program if we didn't charge the non-residence fee this year, and then when there were improvements made up there, maybe starting off with like a $2 fee next year, and then $1 every year until we had a new field. I know that this year we will not charge our girls an $8 non-residence fee. The association will be paying that. And this is money that's coming out of our girls' pockets to buy equipment and things of that nature. We just can't see charging them $8 for the fields that we have. And we would just like to ask you to not charge it this year.
Thank you, Deanne.
Thank you.
Council? Councilmember Quinones?
Yes, I had a question. In pre-council, it was mentioned to the council that some of the members of the association had gotten the impression, either from seeing it on TV or something, that the council was not going to adopt or rescind the vote on the non-resident. Can anyone explain that to me, where they got that impression? I'm just curious.
Because we were at a board meeting.
Please come to the podium.
Hi, my name is Kathy Cox, and I'm with Haltom City Girls Softball. I'm a non-resident, but I was here at that meeting. And when it was mentioned that you might charge a fee, a non-resident fee, there were several chuckles. And there were also a comment made about those fields have been the same since I lived on D Lane back and went to your Haltom Junior High. I don't want to say my age, but it's been a while. But I grew up in Haltom City, and those are the same fields I have played on. And I heard that comment made, and I heard several chuckles. Therefore, what were we to assume? We were to assume that y'all didn't take that seriously until some improvements were made. I come here because I love these people. I grew up with a lot of these people. My kids like the community. I spend a lot of time here. I'm on the board. I spend a lot of my money here because we have to eat out because I can't drive all the way back home first. So you do benefit from me being here because you get my tax money some way or another. Your local stores get my money. That's my concern. My concern is because we are going to pay this out of the board fund, that is less children that live in Haltom City that we may be able to sponsor who may not be able to afford to play otherwise. Because we do sponsor your girls.
Does that answer?
Through free play. Does that answer your question?
Does that answer your question?
I just thought there may have been something specific, but I get the idea, get the impression.
We heard the chuckles, and their comments were made. I can't say which one made it, but basically they said they echoed the same thing I did.
I don't remember which meeting. If you remember when that was, just generally?
Can I speak from here or do
Up front.
It was the council meeting that the sales tax was brought before the council to vote for election, to come up for election. It was at that council meeting, and it was brought up that there hadn't been any improvements down there, and the non-residence fee was brought up at that time. And I know that there was a council member, and I don't remember which one it was, that said, well, those fields have been the same since we lived here. How could we approve a non-residence fee? That would be ridiculous. Yeah, that man right there. I didn't want. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, the reason that's pertinent, at least from my point of view, is because I think the council has been. I mean, I brought this up, and other council members brought this up over a year ago to look at doing this, and we were looking into this in January of last year, and we were getting information on it, and then we, of course, discussed it and passed it sometime in September, October, whenever that was, to do this. And I don't remember us ever, in our discussions, ever saying anything to indicate that, yeah, we're going to pass this now, but if this thing passes later, then we're going to come back and rescind or change our vote. I don't remember us ever saying we would do that. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about just that, a non-resident fee, and what amounts that would be, and
Well,
how that would be done.
I know there were a lot of us that were here at that meeting, and our impression when we left here from the laughs and the comments that were made when that statement was made, that this was not something that was up for discussion at this point. It might have been something that would be up for discussion later on, but not that soon, not at the next council meeting.
Well, I just recollect that's, regardless of our positions up here in the council, I don't think any of us ever gave that impression, at least I know I didn't, and that we spent a lot of time looking into that and whether to increase it or not. And in fact, the park board made that recommendation, and we adopted it. And so to me, that was the final issue of it.
Well, I know that I have spoke with the Parks Board, and a lot of our associations have. We feel that when there is something up for discussion regarding our associations, that we're going to have to follow through with these things, that, for good communication between the Parks Board and the associations, that we would like to be involved in the discussion before something like that is brought before the council, because these are things that we are going to have. We have to do these things. We have to collect $8 and turn it over to the city. So I feel that it's only right that that we're at least notified or told that it's up for discussion.
Well, I think that another question or problem I have is that after that was adopted to raise the fee, then they appointed the sales tax committee. Each of the three groups or associations had a representative on that sales tax committee. And there was some discussion there as to what was going to be done with those sales tax monies. I understand some impressions that we're going to be able to buy a new park, and now we're talking about the things that have to be done to the old ones. And that may be an issue of where priorities are. But, I mean, I have the impression, and I'm not speaking for the others, but I think we all understood that y'all clearly knew that it was adopted, and as participants in the committee to raise the sales tax were aware of what was going on.
I was on the sales tax committee, and we never discussed the non-residence fee on that committee.
I think that's what you're saying, though, isn't it? That it had nothing to do with the sales tax?
It was not conditioned on its passage.
Right.
And I know that the motion, if you look at the minutes, was not for that, and I don't think anyone even mentioned that, if I'm not mistaken. I don't believe that was any part of it. But I just think, and I understand hearing about how $8 can keep a kid out or something, and don't want to sound harsh about that. I mean, that's the same sentiment was said by some about raising the sales tax, that it was just a small amount of money and it wouldn't. But I think equity to our citizens would require that we do have the non-resident fee. I think that's why the council passed it to begin with, was that...
I don't think that we're disagreeing with the non-residence fee. I think we're just disagreeing with the facilities that we have charging a non-residence fee.
Well, the way I would compare it, it was the same thing as what we told the citizens. We said, if you do this tax, these are the things that will come later. They don't have them now. That's true. They're waiting for they're going to be paying the tax as it goes. And sometime in the year, 2, 3 years down the road, and they're very patient people, I know, they're willing to wait for that. But in the meantime, they're paying.
Well, we've also been told that it's not a guarantee that $8 would go to Broadway Park where these kids are playing.
Well, I don't think that would be much of a problem for the council to do something like that. It is $4,500 approximately. I don't see, that's a budget item. But I think that we pay as we go is a policy that we've kind of adopted given our circumstances, and we have to look at that. And that was in our thinking. And I think equity would require that we maintain the non-resident fee as it is. Because when that sales tax kicks in, our citizens will be paying it. And they will be paying it until they see results. And I think the same thing would apply here. I'm sympathetic to what you're saying because I understand how raising fees affect everybody. But we had to look as a council when we had voted on this to see what we could do equity to our residents who are going to be paying for this too. And believe me, they like the improved parks as well. And hopefully this money will be applied for that purpose. But I know we have a large turnout, but I have to say that's my opinion, and I think the opinion of many on the council. I won't speak for them, but I'll be glad to make a motion after discussion, Mayor, if that's appropriate.
We'll come back to you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ownby,
Oh, I get to be next. I was kind of hoping to be the last.
I thought you might like to clarify.
Well, I had a couple of things. First of all, I'm the councilman that, and we didn't time together, but I was one that said that if you want to go back to the future, this was it. It was here. Because, yeah, every one of y'all, and I did too, played ball 20 and 30 years ago on the same exact fields that we're playing on today. Same gym, everything. Nothing changed. We did pass the tax, and that is to help partially improve the parks and the recreation, and that's true. I've been up here discussing with my council members, even as we sit here, about the fact that some of them are asking, well, this has already passed, why are we having to visit it? And I said, well, you know, Harvard did a business study one time, and they found out that 70% of the decisions you make initially are wrong. Okay? And that means that you have to have good judgment and prudence to be able to look back and re-summarize what you're doing and see if it's a sound, prudent process. And if it's not, reevaluate it and go forward with a new change. I was asked, really, do we have to visit this? And I said, well, I don't know. In 1988, we zoned out used cars completely in this city, yet we have them. And I tell you that not because we need 10,000 more used car lots, and I'm not telling you that, but what I'm telling you this is they need a place in the home in the city too. We made a mistake, okay? I do believe that we should be able to charge a good fee for the parks and recreation once they're in place. I don't think they're in place yet myself either. That's why I would like to stand up and I know I've at least got Gene up here with me, and I don't know who else, but I would tell you this, that I like the graduated process. I think we're going to gradually, over the next 2 and 3 years, we're going to have the parks where you really will be proud of. You will be excited about it, and guess what? The other thing I said in this other room while ago in pre-council, it'll cost more to take care of it. They built Ranger Stadium, and then they had to charge higher prices to take care of the ballpark. Well, once we get the ballparks in place, we may have to have that fee, and we will have a right to ask for that fee. But I think right now, I would like to revisit it and look at possibly adjusting it and modifying it right now so that it does graduate as we graduate into having the proud parks and having the things in place to feel good about asking for the $8 non-resident fee. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Councilmember Arp.
Well, I guess I was going to ask this question earlier, but I guess I'll go ahead and give you the answer. My question I was going to ask how much fee does the association pay to Haltom City when they play? The answer to that is zero. They pay $0. And that means that people who are non-residents are contributing nothing to the city as far as maintenance goes when they're coming in. And that was the reason, after, like Tom had brought up, is that we'd talked about this for almost a year, and that's why we came up with a non-residence fee of $8. That is because I don't feel that it's fair that our taxpayers pay all the money and allow non-residents to play on the fields, and the $8, I know that some of you think it's a lot of money, but $8 is a small amount compared to what the taxpayers are already having to pay. And keep in mind, the associations right now are paying the city absolutely zero. So we think it's fair, or at least I do, I can't say we, but I think it's fair that we charge $8 to non-residents. So that's my opinion.
Thank you. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a question, and I really don't know who of you would be best qualified to answer this. I was wondering, of the total group of children that participate in these leagues, approximately how many, what percentage-wise, would be non-residents? In other words, who would be affected by this $8 charge?
I'd like to answer that. It still varies.
Come forward, please.
It will vary. Haltom City Youth Baseball has several competitors around the area that would keep out residents that live outside the area playing in those areas. But like Haltom City Football doesn't have, so they would have a higher percentage than what we had. That's no reason. It's almost kind of unfair because you're going to tax one association more than the other. I agree with something that Councilman Earp brought up. We've never been asked to pay? Okay, I would have had a lot of time easier swallowing. Here's a fee for your association, justified for how many kids you have, as opposed to taxing my patron who's coming to play, especially when I don't have anything to show them, on why I'm doing that. So, We've never paid, you're right, we've never paid anything. No one's ever asked us to pay anything. Nobody's ever asked us to pay anything.
Can you give me a number, 100, 200?
A number of kids or
Number of children, right? Number of children, number of people that pay that $8.
I don't think, until we have final registration and look at it, I don't think anybody could give you that exact number, which is
No, I'm not asking for exact number, I'm asking for a guess.
I probably will have how many think in baseball, do you know? How many? In baseball, we had 80. Football,
Okay.
approximately 170 in football. How about softball?
Just a minute ago, I think you said something about 150 and 500.
Who, me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fix that. Yeah.
Okay.
Total.
So we're talking 300, roughly?
Roughly, yes, sir.
That'd be a fair figure? Okay, that would answer my question. Now I'd like to address what Ed had to say a minute ago. I tend to agree that our facilities are lacking. I also played on the same fields, and I'm 50 years old now, so that tells you that they've been there a while. What I see here is I see some people that are coming before this council, and they're saying, you know, we are willing to compromise. No one's ever asked us to pay an association fee. I would certainly lean more toward an association fee as a user fee. You know, let the association absorb the user fee as opposed to the child. It would be much easier for them to do so in instances. I can see how that by the association doing that, it might not necessarily preclude some child that would otherwise not be able to play from playing. So I would certainly like to see that. I also feel like we would be justified in perhaps a gradual phasing in of these charges. And here again, I see these people saying, yes, you know, we would also be receptive to that. I don't really see any point in stringing this out over 5 or 6 years. I think we could get it done a lot quicker. I think probably the ideal situation would be to look at possibly an association fee. Maybe the first year, you know, go with a $3 or $4 charge, and then the next year, if we want it to be $8, then we base it on the total number of participants and charge the association, and they can recoup their cost however they want. But I do feel like the city needs to be reimbursed for some of these services. I think that's fair. I don't believe there's anybody out there saying, hey, we want a free ride. And I know that the city also does not want to absorb all of the cost for this. So in the spirit of compromise, certainly I would like to work out some type of compromise. And if it's to charge the association, then I would lean in that direction.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
He said pretty well what I was going to say in my first part. Second part, I wanted to address the staff and find out what I was up at that park last year during some softball games for my niece that played up there. I'm concerned about the dirt that's washed away, the fences that are not repaired, and what kind of time frame we're going to look on. Are we going to have that ready by the time their new season starts? Because I don't want them playing on that field if it's in that bad a shape.
Mr. Ison?
Well, I think clearly you're correct. There needs to be some major refurbishment, and that's really what one of the issues was that was included in the recent election on sales tax. And we don't have a specific schedule in mind at this point for when we can complete what are some major improvements. I don't think the kind of improvements that you're talking about are going to be done in 30 days or 45 days. I have had a meeting with Mark Spencer, who is, as you know, Councilman, those of you in the audience may not, is the city's park planner who has done a number of projects for us in the past. And I've asked him to put together a proposal for us as quickly as he could to include some cost figures for him to work with us on some planning for specifically what needs to be done. And I think that planning, and it's Mark's feeling as well, ought to include the users of the facilities as well. So I do expect that I will be getting something back from Mark in the very near future on timing and scheduling, and we had indicated to him we wanted to move pretty quickly. Once we know exactly what we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit better handle on the timing. And the bad news is that the fields are used for one purpose or another pretty much all year, and there's going to be a time period when we're going to have to shut things down to make those improvements, and we're going to be asking for the association's help to work with us during those time periods. And hopefully it doesn't mean cancellation of a season for anybody, Maybe it'll mean shortening a season or something like that, but again, we're going to know more when we get the specifics of exactly what we're going to do. But I don't think anybody's going to deny that we need to do some major work there.
Okay, and the other thing, I coached girls softball for about 10 years, girls fast pitch. And I know a lot of times associations don't pay anything to the city to use those facilities. But something they didn't touch on is every one of those people out there that's a coach or assistant coach or a board member, they also get paid exactly the same amount that they pay the city to use those fields. So they're providing a service that if they weren't providing, somebody in this city would have to be providing. And I'm glad that we're blessed with them. I'm glad that we're blessed with people in this city that have done this for years. So I would entertain something, as Ed talked about, to try to give them some sort of relief. If you got a family that makes good money, $8, that's not a lot of money. If you got a family and both parents, a lot of these families now have split parents. They're divorced, and you take a single parent family and it takes every dime they can get just to get by. And I would hate to see any child not get to play over that $8. And so I would entertain something as Ed spoke with, and I think the majority of this council would want to do the best that we could do to help this association out.
Councilmember Markham.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, I've sat and I've heard arguments on both sides, and quite honestly, I agree with it, just about all of them. But one of the duties as a council member is look after tax-paying citizens of our city. They're the ones that put the majority of the bill that goes to play on what we have. And I grant you that it's certainly not the best in the world, and I realize that. But it does take money to keep what we do have. I think we need to have some sort of non-resident fee, be it this year or be it next year in increments, or whichever way the council deems it necessary to pursue. But I do believe we need to start this, and I believe it needs to be started as soon as possible in some form or fashion. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Unby?
Yeah, this may not be the best compromise, but compromise has got to be worked out somehow. And I did want to point out one of the other obvious things, thank you, John, because I coached for 16 years myself, and I think that everybody out there knows this too. The most important thing it does is that nobody thinks about, first of all.
Move your microphone forward.
I'll yell. I'm sorry. I said the most important thing that this all does, that nobody seems to point it out yet too, is it's a service that's provided for free on both sides to the youth. And that's what it's supposed to be about, okay? And out of 16 years of coaching, I only had the displeasure of losing one child to crime. I did have, when that shooting they had over there on Roof Snow a few years ago, one of the 16-year-old boys that was shot was one of the kids that was on my team. But I do know this, there's probably about 20 or 30 kids that every one of y'all have coached that are still alive today, still doing good, and a lot of them turned out real well because they were playing ball instead of out doing drugs, partying and doing all the other stuff that they could have been doing instead of being with y'all. And that's a service you can't put a price on, okay? Compromise I can come up with, I'll tell you this, I think that over the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to have all the facilities pretty much the way we want them. They're never perfect, because somebody's always going to yell about it, but if you just start at a $2 fee, and then you go to 4, and then 6 and 8, or we charge an association fee, either one's fine with me. We need to work it out. We do need to do something. I understand that. Guys, most of y'all don't know, I coached in NEO all the time. It takes both NEO and Haltom sports, both, is what it's taken over all these years to keep all those kids where they had a place to play ball and to be able to do what they wanted to do. So I'm 100% in favor of the compromise. Maybe Gene has better details. I don't know. You're the parks guy.
Councilmember Quinones?
I had a question for Mr. Fowler. I think we discussed this association fee, and I just wanted to get some confirmation on that. George?
George, would you come out, please?
Sure. George, you remember when we discussed this during this last year, and some questions about how a non-resident fee could be collected or assessed either by individual or by association. And was that discussed with the park board?
Yes.
Do you remember, because I don't remember, do you remember what their problems were, or why they did not recommend or have not ever recommended at least as far as I know, the past few years, recommended a association fee?
I can't speak for the park board. I can give you an educated guess as the fact that they just felt like
whatever the reasons are, as usual. Remember.
Non-resident fee was more palatable to them at the time rather than charge what they thought might be a redundant fee towards just a flat user's fee or a flat association fee. They felt like non-residents were the ones that to charge the fee to, and that the association could then pass that on to the non-residents if they so chose to.
Okay. Well, I wasn't quite sure what you mean, what their difference was. Was it easier to collect it from the non-resident fee or by association?
Well, they would charge they would ask the associations to pay a fee, an $8 non-resident fee. The association would collect it and then pay that money to the city, according to however many non-residents they have.
Well, the reason I ask is because I understand that some of tonight have expressed an interest in an association fee, and I know that we had discussed it. In my mind, there's two different things: a flat rate for each association to participate versus a fee per non-resident.
Well, I can't speak for the park board, obviously, but the problem was, like football may have, say, 500 boys and 300 cheerleaders. Baseball might have 500 total, and girls softball may have 300 total, and there wasn't, if you're going to charge it across the board, 500 to each one, or 1,000, whatever it be, $10. It's, one of them might have 900, one of them might have 500, one of them might have 300 participants, and they didn't see the equitability of that.
They didn't think of a sliding scale or anything like that?
Not to my knowledge, no.
All right. Well, I hear the problems about, again, going back to what we talk about this fee thing. I still feel in favor. We need to keep it, $8. The residents of this city are paying taxes to maintain those parks also, whether they use them or not. And I just cannot see asking them to continue to bear the cost by themselves. They were told that the $8, the sales tax would be very small and they could afford it and would do all these things, and they're going to start paying that. I think it only equity would require, because of our taxpayers, that we keep the program that was adopted by this council about 4 or 5 months ago. If it's a matter of a few dollars here and there, I think that proves the point when about those who said that the taxes and these few charges didn't matter, because they do, obviously, or you wouldn't be here tonight. So I'm just inclined to keep it the way it is. Apparently, they discussed the association fee and didn't consider it to be something to proffer to us. And I'm not ready to change what we spent a long time trying to adopt in the first place.
I still will come back to you when it's motion time. Councilmember Henserling?
Well, last Thursday night, I'll just tell you this.
You don't know.
Last Thursday night, the Economic Development Corporation, which is the group of folks that are going to oversee and set the priorities and implement the sales tax monies that were just passed. I know the chairman of the Park and Rec Board came before us and told us what his top 3 priorities were. And the number 1 priority was Broadway Park. Number 2 priority was land acquisition. And number 3 priority was fixing up the rec center. So I'll tell you, since this directly impacts most everybody that's here on this particular issue, that was the number 1 priority, is fixing Broadway Park. And we're all in agreement that it needs to be fixed. I think one glaring thing to think about, and I want to kind of frame some of this for the council and put you on these folks' shoes a little bit to see how this is, impacting them. 2 years ago, we enacted NYSCA, which was the certification process, which was a very good thing, improve the quality of our programs. But it's costing, what does it cost an individual to go? $20 a year.
Then you got to do a $4 background check.
I'm getting that next. That was last year. So y'all pay out of your pocket as volunteers. What was it? $15 or $20 for the non-serving. That's for a year. You have to do that on an annual basis, and there is some insurance associated with that, but it's kind of it's not the main selling point for doing it, it's the quality of the program. And then last year, we came along and put background checks on it, which is $5 as well. It's roughly $4 to do a background check. And I'm assuming the associations are either passing that cost along to the folks, or they're absorbing it themselves, or they're paying it out of their pocket as volunteers. I'm not sure. Paying out of their pocket. So, you know, I hate to say kick them, but kick them while they're down sort of thing, you know, and now we're going one step further and we're throwing another thing on them, and I think it's fair, and I think everyone agrees here that's the right thing to do, to not fund and provide our facilities for people that come in from out, you know, the other cities. That's just the right thing to do. Now it's a matter of how do you implement it and how do you try to come up with a fair way to do it. And I think one glaring thing to consider right here is, do we pass this ordinance in October? When did we pass the $8 non-resident fee? What, is it December?
It was included in the budget assumption, so September.
Back in September. Before we adopted the
When
budget.
we finally voted on the $8 fee, it was in December. And what's the difference between that night and tonight? We didn't have a single person here to talk about. And I'm getting to that. I'm just saying. Still on my thunder. I think it's a glaring thing. It was mentioned earlier. I don't know if it was Kathy or Deanne Russell talked about communications with our associations, and y'all do serve a tremendous function in our city for our youth. It's invaluable, and you can't put dollars and cents on it. But issues like this, which we know are hot buttons, and we know they're big deals to you because they impact your organizations, y'all need to be in the loop on it, and you need to be at the Park and Rec meetings when it's discussed, and you need to have your input into it. And I venture to say, if y'all knew it was voted on in December, you'd have been up here just like you are tonight, but you didn't know about it. And so I'm disappointed in the fact that I think we dropped the ball as a city to inform you and keep you in the loop what's going on. And you know, so with all that said, I think you probably agree with where I'm going to go with this, and that's just I agree with the idea of a graduated plan. I think it needs to be implemented. So, you know, I know Tom's got the floor in terms of a motion, but you know, I'd be interested in seeing what that motion is. But I would support a graduated system for non-resident fees.
Councilmember Arp?
I guess my one comment is and Dewey had touched on it, is that I'm looking out for the interest of the taxpayers of Haltom City. I don't want to charge an association fee because that's not what this is about. That's why I was saying the association, we're charging $0. That's because the association, as far as the residents of Haltom City are, they're already supporting that with taxpayers' money. And that's why I was in favor of the $8 for non-residents, because it still cost us people to go mow the facility, to water it, to light it. All that still costs money, and that's why we came up with a non-residence fee back in December. That's all I have to say.
Do you have something additional to add, Councilmember Ownby?
I thought Don was going to say this too, though, because we've been beating up each other up here for a few minutes trying to figure out what graduated scale we like, not knowing what the four of y'all like, which outnumber us. But
Can you hear him?
Nope.
I said, we've been down here beating each other up trying to figure out what a graduated scale to work with was, if we did work with the graduated scale, instead of charging an association fee. And I thought Don was going to say it because we kind of nailed one down that we thought that it's not going to, nothing ever works exactly the way y'all want it anymore. It does us probably, except if y'all know that, you never coached a ball team and you're all lying, okay? Because it doesn't work the same way you called it, except every once in a while. What we are looking at was we realistically feel like, since it is priority number one, that probably over the next 2 to 3 years we should have the facilities exactly or close to what we'd like them to be. So we kind of came up with a compromise of 2, 4, and then 8, okay, over a 3-year period of time. And that way you're implementing it in slowly, but not too slow. $2, you know, this year, $4 next year, and $8 the next year. That way it doesn't take too big of a bite, because I'm even looking at these people that y'all are looking at and telling you that this year they're going to pocket it. They're going to pay it out of their pocket. And that's going to make the difference. Okay? That's why if I'm them, I'm going to go $1, okay? But that's a reasonable compromise, and I think within 3 years, everybody will feel real good about charging the full $8 for non-residents. And right now, they'll take the majority of the burden off of you if we do it that way. And I'd make that an motion if we get past the other one.
Councilmember Quinones, it's for you.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we've had a lot of discussion on it, and so, and I know the opportunistic thing would be to do that, but I think that many of the, my motion will be that we keep it at the present, that what the rate that we adopted, the $8, and the reason being that people are paying for their streets to get fixed, even though it may take 5 years till they get fixed. They're paying for it now. And I just can't see making an exception in this case. And to me, that makes equity for our taxpayers and the residents of the city. So my motion is to continue with what we adopted recently.
Councilmember Arp,
Let's be for second.
I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion fails. Councilmember Quinones and Arp voting for. Thank you, gentlemen. Councilmember Henserling?
Well, I don't want to steal Councilmember Allenby's thunder, so I was going to...
Well, no, it's your board. Go ahead.
And it's not my board, it's Don's board. Don's board, it's Don's board. I'm a crowd board.
Yep. Get him out of here. Can we fire him tonight? No. Well, the motion I wanted to make...
Are you giving it over to...
I'm deferring.
Okay.
Councilmember Allenby.
The motion I would like to make was a gradual, in other words, repeal the current non-resident fee and actually do it on a gradual step program of $2, then $4, and then $8 over the next 3 years.
Beginning when?
Well, I said this year, I told everybody out there they're going to have to pay $2 per kid. I'm going to stick with it.
Okay.
Okay?
Councilmember Henserling, did you want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second that. I know that the associations are probably going to have to, sounds like they're going to absorb some of this already this year, but I think that's the equitable thing to do, and I'll second that motion.
All right.
Nancy?
Excuse me? Uh-huh.
And I'll donate my check. I don't care who else will, but I'll donate my check.
I have a motion and a second. Register your vote, please. Motion passes. Our next agenda item is a public hearing, agenda item number 12. Mr. Eisen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, items 12, 13, and 14 are related to one another, and I'll just address each of those at this time. Item 12 is the actual public hearing associated with ordinances number 13 and 14. And I should mention that you will have to reverse the order of the two ordinances on your agenda and consider item number 14 first. It is actually an amendment to the land use plan. Item 13 is a proposed rezoning of a piece of property located on the Jordan Park addition at the northwest corner of Haltom Road and Northern Cross Boulevard. The proposed zoning change is to change the zoning on the property from C2 to SF2 single-family residential in order to accommodate the construction of 4 residential lots.
I'm going to wait till it quiets down a little bit. I don't know if they could hear you, but I could barely.
Huh?
This being a public hearing, I now open the public hearing. Is the applicant here in case there are questions from council? You are? Do you have something you'd like to say?
No, ma'am. I'll be glad to answer any questions you want.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for this agenda item? Anyone to speak against? Then I'll close the public hearing and move on to agenda item number 14, which is the ordinance to amend the future land use plan. Councilmember Quinones?
I move that we adopt ordinance as recommended in 0200515.
Thank you,
zoning.
Thank you. Councilmember Arp?
I wanted to ask a question. I wanted to ask how many of these lots...
Councilmember, let me get a second, and then we'll have discussion.
All right.
Councilmember Markham?
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Arp?
I was going to ask how many of these lots were zoned C2 that we're looking at changing to single family?
It's currently one large tract of land, or relatively large tract of land, that's being proposed to be rezoned. All of it was C2 and now will be changed to R2.
And what's the zoning across the street on the other corner?
To the north of it, it is zoned industrial, and then to the west,
it's all zoned residential, and I believe to the south it's also zoned residential. I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but in the there's a copy of the zoning map in the P&Z packet. But most everything, originally this piece of property was part of the original subdivision, and I guess when things were done way back when, in order to put a model home real estate sales office, it had to be in a commercial district versus residential. And the comprehensive plan was also adopted accordingly, and now the applicant is requesting now the applicant is requesting to, now that the subdivision is pretty much built out, is requesting to get it back into what the original plan was, and that is to finish out the subdivision as single-family residential.
I guess what my concern about this is that looking at this, that's the only corner that has any commercial on it in that area.
Right, again, and I think the reason why, we went back and looked at the history of the rezoning on this property when it was zoned to the C2 district, and again, in looking at the staff report, in the history of it, it appeared in order for him to put a model home to sell all of the lots in the residential, it was not allowed as residential as it is today, that he had to get the property rezoned to commercial in order to put the real estate office there to sell the homes in the subdivision. According to the applicant, it was their intention from the very beginning that once it got sold out that they would come back and get the property rezoned to single family. And Councilmember Arp, in looking at it, actually the property to the north as well as the northeast is all zoned heavy industrial. Property to the south and to the southwest is all zoned single family residential.
Well, I feel that we shouldn't be giving up this commercial property at this time, so I'll be voting against it.
Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I serve as the, can't even say liaison, as liaison of the P&Z, and I was present the other evening when we discussed this. This particular addition has been in existence about 6 years, I believe. Is that right, BJ? About 6 years. Right now, there is a trailer sitting on the closest portion of that property to Haltom Road. Northern Cross is developed all the way down, single-family dwellings on both sides, and basically this was originally intended to be fully developed as single-family dwellings. Due to the location there on that corner, that being a very high traffic volume area, I do not feel that there would be any viability to placing any type of commercial operation there. Egress and the ability to maneuver in that area would be very well inhibited by the flow of traffic on Haltom Road. And up until such time as Northern Cross is cul-de-sac, and I believe that's in the future land use plan, there's a very high volume of traffic coming east and west down Northern Cross. It would be my opinion that probably the best use of this land would be to go ahead and place single-family dwellings on that, and I would be voting in favor of that.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
I was curious on the, I think I read in the packet, they're going to try to make four pieces of property out of that.
Yes, sir.
Are they going to face all 4 pieces of property toward
Northern Cross.
Northern Cross?
Right, I'd like to go ahead and point out, y'all have not seen, and if you approve this, you will actually see the replat come through. These lots are not your typical SF2. These are much, much larger than the minimum lot size of an SF2.
And there's still a great abundance of, I passed you my map, there's that M2, I think, just due to the, northeast of there across Haltom Road. That's a very large tract right behind the, and we don't exactly know what the plans are of that. I know that there's some plans in the future to use that for something, but we
Are
don't
you
know
talking about
exactly.
just to the north of this?
Directly across the street from there, back where the rental What they, storage?
Oh, the Aloha, right, the piece of property, it's about 10 acres that's in
Right.
between, and we actually do have a replat in on that particular piece of property. That's called industrial catering, and the industrial catering property, they're aware if they're going to expand, they are going to be putting in the proper buffering and landscaping against the residential. They're going to have to do it for the majority of that property anyway, and luckily, this is coming at the same time, and Ernie actually represents both this one and industrial catering, if you have additional questions on that.
I guess what I was just wanting to point out on this, if they do rezone this to residential, that when these residents move in here, I would like them to fully understand that the other property is zoned commercial or industrial, and not have them moving in with any kind of thoughts that, well, that across the street is probably, we assume that this was all going to be residential over there.
Right, and we have to hopefully count on the developers and home builders to inform them of that, unless sometimes people do come in our office and they know enough to come in and ask what the zoning is all around it and ask to see the comp plan, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. You're right.
I just want to be on record as saying that that other across there could very well be commercial, and I would hate for a resident to come in. I mean, they have the right to come in and express their opinion on that, but just because we're going to build residential all the way up to Haltom Road doesn't mean the rest of that is going to turn into residential.
Any further discussion from council? If not, I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes with Councilmember Arp voting no. Now we'll go back to agenda item number 13, which is also an ordinance on this same SF2 to change the zoning classification. Councilmember Quinones?
Yes, Mayor, I move that we adopt the ordinance in item 13, 0200004-15 to change the zoning to CF2.
Thank you. Councilmember Henserling?
That's for a second, Madam Mayor.
I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. And motion passes with Councilmember Arp voting no.
I think Tom said CF2, but I think he meant SF.
SF2, I'm sorry, excuse me,
SF2,
that's
okay.
correct.
Let's see. Now we're on agenda item number 15. Mr. Eisen?
Thank you, Mayor. This is also a public hearing regarding a replat of approximately a 6-acre tract of land off of Fossil Creek Boulevard. The proposed replat is to create 19 residential lots, and I see that there are a couple of representatives of the developer in the audience this evening, if you'd like to hear from them as well.
Thank you. This being a public hearing, I'll now open the public hearing and ask if the applicant would like to speak or would be available for questions, whichever.
For the record, my name is Thad Rundgren with Carter & Burgess Engineers and Planners, 3880 Hewlin Street, Fort Worth, Texas. We're here on behalf of Mr. Sam Weiss, the developer of the property. We're available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for this agenda item? Against? If not, I'll close the public hearing, and we would be in line for a motion. Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we approve P 03499.
Councilmember Quinones?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. And agenda item 15A, which is an addendum, is the facilities agreement that goes back to, let's see, that has to do with item number 13, correct? Okay, thank you. Is there any explanation? I don't need it on that.
Only for the benefit of those who aren't familiar with facility agreement process. Anytime a development or a subdivision comes in, we enter into a contract or an agreement with the developer which specifies what his responsibilities are under the city's ordinances, and the agreement you're considering at this point in time addresses that specific agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I'll make it.
Councilmember Quinones?
I move that we adopt the facilities agreement as proposed.
Councilmember Williams?
For a second.
A motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Our next agenda item is our Visitors and Citizens Forum. Please be aware that council cannot debate anything that comes up during this time. As for the the open meetings law, the first, let me see, I have 2 speakers' cards. Harris White, would you come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record?
Harris White, I live at 5766 Fall Creek Drive, Haltom City, Texas. I'm going to make it brief. I'm here tonight pretty much to inform City Council and the citizens of Haltom City that we will be making a name change, and that name change includes the Mayor's Committee on Minority Affairs. We would like to change it to include and at least sound conclusive with Haltom City, which we want to declare that the name will change to Haltom City's Committee on Minority Affairs. The goals will remain the same. Nothing as far as our gender will change. We will still be working with the mayor and hopefully city council, as we always have, and all of the citizens of Haltom City. One thing I do want to make note of that's coming up here real soon is the census. I'm going to appeal to the citizens of Haltom City to work with us on a completion committee, which entails the people of Haltom City and us as a committee to go out in the community and to help people who did not complete the census forms. This will be coming up in April, I believe. We're forming a committee now with all of the minorities in Haltom City in order to get this done, because a lot of people don't understand that we have to get an accurate count because that involves money for the city, just point blank. And we would like to have an accurate count in order to receive that revenue that will help economic development in the city. And that's all that is based on. So I'm going to appeal to the citizens of Haltom City to get involved with this committee when the completion committee comes around. We will be meeting in March 21st, and we would hope that everybody would at least get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Harris. Bill Louthan? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Bill Louthan. I live in 1924 Higgins Lane. I've lived here since 1954. I'm a homeowner, business owner, and I want to comment on something that's come up on the Charter Review Committee. I understand one of the changes that's being considered is changing the requirements if you decide to run for public office here in Haltom City. I understand I was told that the requirement would be maybe possibly having come in with a petition with 100 voter signatures on it. If you didn't do that, you paid $100 or 100 hamburgers. I think any of those would be fine, but if you go with the 100 hamburgers, may I suggest that you make sure those are local hamburgers. We don't want outside hamburgers influencing voters in Haltom City.
That's right.
It's exactly the response I expected from it. You think that's real funny.
That's right.
Until you realize that came from a citizen, one of you people put on that board to conduct the city business. I think every one of you thought the people you put on that board would be serious, take the job serious, go down there, take care of the city's business, protect every citizen of Haltom City. I am a citizen of Haltom City. I do not feel like my rights are being protected. I've watched the last city council meeting for 3 times. A lot of that meeting was taken up with ethics. How ethical is it of a fellow citizen to go down there, make a wisecrack, a verbal attack, whatever you want to call it, aimed directly at another citizen, me. I know you can't act on this request tonight, but I hope one of you will stand up and protect the citizens of Haltom City, me being one of them. I request that it be considered to have Stan White removed from the Charter Review Committee, either have him resign, put it on the agenda next week, have it discussed. I'll be more than willing to come back with the whole story. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laufin. Next item on the agenda will be for announcements and events. Do we have any announcements, Council? Councilmember Arp?
I was just going to say that our Haltom City calendar does not show Thursday the 17th, that we're having the 6:30 p.m. zoning. At the bottom. At the bottom. Oh, they put them way down there? Okay. Never mind. But I don't know that I would have seen it down there because I didn't. Okay. At the library, since I've gone this far.
At the library, right. Councilmember Williams?
Yes, Madam Mayor, this is not really an announcement. I'd just like to thank everyone out there for their participation this past weekend in the Buffalo Stampede. It was a tremendous success. The weather was perfect. I'd like to thank the police department, all their participants for doing the escort service for us, and all the volunteers that we had come out. The senior citizens come down and provided refreshments for the runners and stuff, and they set food up throughout the running track. They went up all around, up through Diamond Oaks and back down. Tireless hours preparing that. I'd like to thank everybody on the park board and everybody in the parks department. And it was overall success, and it couldn't have been done without all the volunteer help. I really appreciate the people that come out and volunteer and helped us on that.
You're right. It was a great event. And as Mr. White mentioned earlier, there will be a complete count committee meeting at the library on March the 21st at 6 p.m. for census information. And this complete count committee will be responsible for identifying the areas of our city to the Census Bureau where we feel that there will be a lack for one reason or another, a language barrier or whatever, of getting the census filled out. So please mark that on your calendar. We need all the help we can get, and we'd appreciate your coming out to give us a hand. Do we need a break, Council?
I do.
I thought I heard that from several of you. We will take a 10-minute break at 9:02.
Part of that celebration to be having an amnesty week where there would be no fines charged on library materials which would be returned during the week, no matter how late or overdue they were. And secondly, if somebody came in and said they had a fine on their record, the materials had already been returned, that we would forgive those fines and clear their records so that they could get their cards cleared and start using the library again. They wanted to bring this before the council for your approval. They believe it would be a very positive step at this time and would be appropriate during the April 9th through the 15th National Library Week celebration. I want to stress that this is a one-time event only, and that for it to be repeated in the future would be unusual.
Thank you. One time.
Thank you.
Amnesty on fines for the library, the week of April 9th through 15th.
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One point that was brought up in pre-council was one of the reasons that the council is planning to entertain the thoughts of offering this amnesty is in the spirit of our 50th anniversary celebration that we're in now. And since we're only going to do this once every 50 years, I would heartily suggest that anyone out there holding those books, bring them back during this 1 week if this passes. Thank you.
We've been lined for a motion. Would you like to continue?
I'd love to make a motion that we extend an amnesty from on the week of April 9th through 15th.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
I'd like to say Rodney's doing an excellent job with our library, and I'd like to second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The library board thanks you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 20 concerns the ethics code policy. Councilmember Quinones?
Yes, Mayor, I appreciate it. We discussed this in pre-council, and it was my thought, and I think the thoughts of others, that we gather the information which the staff has so well put together, gather it and send it to the Charter Review Committee for several reasons. One, they're in the process of looking at things now, and two, I think it would be good that any ethics policy that's developed come from a independent group of some sort, and they can make a decision whether they want to include it as included either in whole or in portions of it in the charter, however they want to do that. But for the council to consider as a ordinance at a later date, let this Charter Review Committee, as it's currently composed, act as an advisory committee to look at this information and put together a recommended ordinance with staff input for the council's consideration at a later time. And I specifically, with no time limitations or constraint, I don't want them to feel any pressure from any of the council, either as a whole or individually, to have this done at a certain date or to have certain provisions in there to their liking, however that is. I want this to be as independent as possible so that the citizens can be assured that whatever comes out of it would be something they can rely on. So that would be my motion, to send the information that we've received plus any other additional information they would request to the Charter Review Committee to develop a proposed ordinance for consideration by the council, an either ethics ordinance or policy, however that's worded, and to do that on the timetable that they would set. And that would be the substance of my motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
One short question before I second that. This is going to cover staff, council, and board members? Or?
Yes, I would assume it would include elected staff and any personnel for the city as well as board members. And they can decide how much, whether they want to make that uniform or make various degrees. That's something for them to decide.
Well, with that, I'd make a second to that motion.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Councilmember Art?
I was just going to make one quick comment in that I'd heard that the city of San Antonio also has a good code of ethics that they may want to look at.
All right, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 21 regards a citizen survey. Councilmember Henserling?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Bill Ison, city manager, and staff for putting together a list of options that we have to consider regarding the citizen survey that we want to have completed. I guess out of the three options, option one was that we have a professional organization we contract with to do the survey for $8,000 to $10,000. Option two was to survey every citizen in the city, I guess at a cost of about $4,600 per sample. And then the third option was for us to do pretty much the same thing that option one would do, a professional organization, but do it in-house. And I would just like to make the motion that we go with option number 3 for a cost of about $100. We can survey and get a good sample, whatever sample that might be of our citizens regarding some of the issues that we're going to be looking at coming up this year in budget and some goal setting workshops. So with that, I make the motion we approve option number 3.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
The best way to find out what the citizens want out there is to ask them, and I agree with Dean on this, and I'd be willing to second his motion on that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please register your vote. Motion passes unanimously. There's been an addition to the agenda. Item 21A has to do with consideration of a water payment drive-up window and/or a municipal court window. Council? Councilmember Arp?
Well, I brought this up earlier in pre-council, but we never did discuss it out in the full council session. One of my concerns is with our water bill payment window is if you want to make a night deposit, you have to get out of your car. That mentioned also before that I'd seen people even pull up in a convertible, had to get out of their car because they couldn't reach our night deposit window, our slot. So that was one of my concerns. The other concern is that we take quite a few fines throughout the city that have to go in through our municipal court. And in order to pay their fines, they have to exit their vehicles and go inside. And I think it would be prudent, as much activity as there are, that it would possibly warrant having a cash payment window to where people could just pull up, pay their fine, and leave. So I just wanted to throw those out for council discussion.
Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In our packet, I noted a series of collection boxes available, one of which being a snorkel box, which is the same type used at our local post office. The placing of this box in an area that would be readily accessible to anyone wanting to make a night deposit. One of the good things about this is it doesn't necessarily have to be in that confined area that we now deal with. This could be out curbside on either side of that entrance. Cost-wise, we're talking $1,200. When looked at in relation to the cost for the other types of repairs, I just have a real problem with the possibility of spending $6,000 or $8,000 on this window. I also noted that staff was had commented that some more lighting was already in the works, regardless of what we do with this particular portion of this. It will be more lighted than it has been in the past, and it is dark over there. I do agree with the need for the lighting. With the drive-up window, you have to have someone there to accept any type of payment. With the drop box, they simply drop it in the box and drive off down the road. My idea on this would be to place a snorkel box out there where everyone can get to it and close that drive-up window, which is a traffic hazard as it is right now. Anyone needing to go inside can exit their car and come inside and pay their bills or do their business in the municipal court. Anyone just looking for a place to drop their bill can walk right up there and put it in that snorkel, but drive right up and put it in the snorkel box. And a novel concept would be to place a stamp on it and send it in the mail. That's how I do mine. I'm certainly not going to tell anybody how to pay their bills, how to go about it, but if I'm going to spend some of the city's money, I'd like to be as frugal as possible about it. I think we can do away with one or more problems at the same time here. And I'm not saying that we need to tear that box out. I'm just saying close that window and don't use it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Williams?
I was going to kind of touch on what he said as far as the drive-in window. I noticed, appreciate staff putting this together and getting us all the various cities in the northeast area and how they go about paying their bills after office hours or during office hours. And I noticed, I don't believe I saw one that has actually a drive-in window. There's a couple that have some tubes that they operate through. And see Mr. Elfrink walked out, so I knew I'd have a question for him. At our window where we're collecting the water bills now, is there quite a bit of people that are paying cash for there? Are they bringing checks in or money orders, or do you have any kind of a way of knowing how they've been paying them?
Between cash and checks, I really don't. I've never asked that question. We do a fair amount of cash, but predominantly.
Pat, excuse me, would you go to the podium?
I'm sorry.
It was just me and him talking.
I think our mail payments are all checks, and predominantly people are paying through the mail. Your drive-through customers, it's probably I would just guess 50/50 cash and checks, because they know someone's there to make change. The same is true of the walk-up customers. I mean, predominantly people pay their bills with checks, but there's a number of people out there that do their business with cash and a few money orders.
Well, I know for years TU Electric downtown had a drive-through window, and for some reason I'd drive a pickup through there that got 10 miles a gallon, go downtown and drive through there and pay my bill. Of course, I was working over on the west side of Fort Worth at that time, but I never stopped to figure the cost of the stamp and the cost of going through town, hadn't to stop at the red light to get out and go into the drive-in window and wait in line. And I think we're going to be real conscious from now on up into the new century that we have with pollution and the cars sitting out there idling. And I think anytime we have a deal like this where we're going to put people waiting in line with cars idling, we're just contributing to pollution. And I kind of go along with Phil. I think probably if we put the snorkel drop box out there for those that just want to drop theirs off, and then for the people that like to pay, just we have quite a few parking places now over on the east side of the building. I think all those are marked visitors parking over on the east side, and they're very easy to pull in, pull out of. I'd like to see probably just go that and have the people come in and say hello and pay their bill in person if they want to bring it down and pay it in person.
But there's not one in the area that has one that's accessible from a vehicle.
They are all, I personally went and viewed the 7 that are on this survey list. I took a day and did the grand tour, took photographs. I noted the types of approaches they have. I noticed the type of drop boxes they have. There's a difference between a drop box, which is like this male snorkel box, and the night depository. The night depository is meant to be an extremely secure bank type environment. So if somebody puts cash in there, they're assured that that cash is going to be quite safe. A couple of these I noted had curved approaches. The main problem with our window is the fact that we have a tighter curb and curve approach to that window. It makes it almost impossible for most vehicles to negotiate that turn and get close enough to the building because of this 11-inch curb that keeps people away from the building, actually, to prevent them from damaging it. So anything that's done to that window that replacement of the entire window will not really improve the situation without straightening out the whole approach, too. So there's a whole lot more to it than just that drawer.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Alfrank. The young lady back there that takes the bills through the window.
Oh, she's going to like you.
Pardon?
She is going to like you, that
The young lady, yes.
Yes.
I come through there quite often, through that part of the office back there, and the people back in that office are quite friendly.
Thank you.
I was wondering, it's probably going to ease their workload, is probably having to have one lady over on the window inside on the west side and then the girl working the driving window on the
running
east
through
side.
my head the things that may occur if this were to go forth. I think things would be more efficient there. Frequently, if there's more than 2 cars in line and someone has a payment situation where I don't have my bill but I want to pay it, we have to print out their account, and so we ask them to come inside anyway.
Right.
We try real hard to, the drive-through is meant to be a quick convenience situation, so we try hard to not have some customers consume more than what would be the typical transaction time of less than a minute. As soon as they don't have their bill, you're talking 3 to 4 minutes, and when you've got 2 or 3 people lined up, that seems like an eternity to them. Everyone's been through the drive-through where somebody, whether it's at food or a bank or what have you, where someone has a special requirement, and you're kind of upset that they didn't go inside.
I always refer to it as someone trying to buy a car at the drive-in window.
Yeah, or process a loan application.
It takes a while. Now, I know if we do make a motion, make this move to move it to where they pay inside, it's going to inconvenience some people because they've been doing it this way for years. And changes come about for things to be better.
On the municipal court aspect of this, I really wasn't aware of that until it came back to the council today. And so I had someone make some phone calls to these 7, and only 1 out of these 7 will accept a court payment of any sort at their drive-through window, because court payments, unfortunately, often involve signatures, proof of identity, copies of insurance documents, copies of driver's license, lengthy discussions about I didn't know I had a warrant out for my arrest.
Complicating that department.
Absolutely.
And we actually need to keep those departments separate.
Right. The one city that'll
they can
take
come
a
in.
court payment at their utility window will accept it only if it's the exact amount for that ticket and the person is willing to leave it without a receipt. And that was Euless, I believe. There's only
That'd
one
be a
that
pretty
does
good
that.
deal.
And as I had a conversation with one or two people today about that situation, I think most people who are paying a traffic fine, they want proof that they got that cleared. I certainly would.
I'd like to hear some more of the council's comments on that.
Councilmember Markham?
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of what I had in mind to say has already been said. I just think I really don't see the need of spending a lot of money. Pat done an excellent presentation of what he gave the council. And even though his figures may be just right in line, normally in my experience with any type of constructions or additions or whatever you want to call it, it always costs more. I would be in favor of putting, as Phil suggested, some kind of postal box. You have something here of $1,200. But I believe, as far as I'm concerned, that would be the most monies that I would see spent on the drive-up window. As far as I'm concerned, they can close it. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Ownby?
Just to kind of echo a little bit of what the rest of the council members said, I do think we should probably put a snorkel out there, and I think that'd be a great idea. Pat, you don't have people dropping cash at night, do you?
No.
Okay,
No,
that was
we
one
don't.
just a little worried. I thought, man, I hope not. And if you don't have that scenario, then I think the snorkel, because when we first visited this many, many months ago, the whole point to it was if somebody had to open their door and reach over, then they lost control of their own security and they weren't safe. Okay, by providing a light and providing the snorkel out there, we cover both of the factors that we were worried about. And we still have the ability to cater to them in the day if they want to drive through right now, it's there. I mean, that gives us the best of all worlds. And if y'all want to do away eventually with the drive-through, fine, but putting a snorkel out there is just a great safety feature with lighting out there, and that would solve the security reasons and the problems at night to the greatest extent that we can solve it.
It makes for a minor added complication to the processing of the payments. For instance, each week we process a cutoff list.
Right.
We take great pains to make sure all payments that have been received have been accounted for against that cutoff list. It would give us one more batch of payments that we'd have to check, but it's minimal impact on the staff there.
Right, and the bottom line is I don't know, my other challenge with trying to spend a lot more money than that is we're fighting with this group out there a while ago for $4,000 worth of revenue a year to fix the parks, and we're going to throw away $8,000 on putting up something that ain't broke. I don't see how we do that. I think we go ahead and get a solution there for a reasonable fee, and we go forward, okay? That's what I got to say.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd be in line for a motion if you have no other comments.
I'll go ahead and get a motion in a second, and then if there's further discussion, we can take it from there.
Okay, based on that, I would like to make a motion that the city purchase a snorkel box, install it in an area that would be easily reached and well lit. I would also further propose that staff decide at what time and how they would entertain the thoughts of closing the drive-up window. I think perhaps probably the way to approach that would be maybe close it for a 30-day period, and if that does not cause any serious problems, then at that point we would determine at what time we would close it permanently. I think that decision should be left up to staff as to how they'd like to do that, but I would like to direct staff to purchase the snorkel box, and let's get people used to using that.
Thank you. Councilmember Hanserling?
Well, I was going to second that until we talked about, we're a little unclear in the motion. It's like we covered two things. I'm for the snorkel box, but I'm really not for the idea of closing the window at this point. So I think it's a convenience we need to offer our citizens, and it's worked well. And unless staff just has this urgency or sees an overwhelming desire to close it for some reason, I don't know why we should.
Closing the window itself was not in my recommendations.
Right.
I had no motivation to do so one way or the other.
In your opinion, is it a good service that we provide to our citizens that we should maintain?
I'm certain that there would be a number of citizens who would voice concern, complaints if it were closed. I think a lot of people, though, would just get out a stamp and mail their payment in.
Well, I guess I won't second the motion because I'm not for closing the window.
Councilmember Williams?
Well, while
Did
he's
you
got-
want to second the motion?
Yeah, but I had some kind.
Well, let's do that and get to any more discussion.
I wanted to clarify his motion on as far as.
Okay.
He made a motion by the snorkel box and close the window. I would like to try to see if I could get him to redo his motion and put the snorkel box in and close the window as of a certain date where this will air enough times on TV and maybe come out in the next water bill to where the people won't drive up and the window be closed.
Councilmember Jennings, do you?
I thought that's what I said. Maybe I didn't.
You really did kind of say
I thought
that,
that's-
yes.
I thought that I left staff the option to determine at what time and how that window would be closed. And certainly I would not want to put that box out there and close it instantly. I think there should be notification there. But I also feel like that by closing that particular area, you're freeing up an employee inside to be more productive and more efficient, and we'll be making better use of our employees that way. Is that what you're trying to get to, John?
Do you wish
Yes.
to second that
You
motion?
did say it'd make your office work more efficiently if you only had the one place to pay
I believe
inside.
it would, just offhand, and regarding proper notice to the community about the impending closure of the window, I think a minimum of 45 to 60 days would be necessary.
I would have no problem with that whatsoever.
Well, as we seen earlier in the meeting, that things are made to be changed, just like we did with the fees for the park. And so I was seconding his motion. If we get an outburst of citizens crying for, wanting to leave it open, we won't keep a closed mind on it. We'll keep an open mind, look and see what kind of response we get. So that would be a second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Please register your vote. Motion passes with Councilmember Henserling voting against. Do we have any appointments to boards and commissions tonight? Councilmember Jennings?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have regret that I must announce that my appointment to the library board, Lynn McClish, has informed us that she'll be moving out of the city of Haltom City, and thus she will be vacating her position. And we'd like to thank her for her service to the library board, and only hope that we'll be lucky enough to find someone that will think as much about the library as she has. And I'm sure that there's someone out there. If anyone would be interested, please contact me. I certainly would like to talk to you about it.
Thank you. Councilmember Henserling?
I don't have any specific nominations. I just want to make the council aware and the folks on HGTV that we've got a couple of spots for volunteers available or open on the Crime Prevention Board. We have a senior citizen spot available, and we have a business liaison position available. Both of those members rolled in to be active members on the board, so we've got 2 spots. So if you have any names or anyone's interested in serving on Crime Prevention Board, please call City Hall. Thanks.
Thank you. We're all here, so we don't have any excused absences. So pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Open Meetings Law, the council will recess to executive session at 9:37.